Well, today we'll talk about trends in modern film post-production, and we'll in general talk about compositing of film material processing, and I would like to talk about current trends. Every year you may distinguish a couple of important elements that really stand out. Elements and trends in film post production because it's a very dynamic field indeed. And I need to make a reference to the previous two presentations, so pre visualization, because I wanted to say something about the initial stage of filmmaking, so the initial research. So, based on the production Fincher's film, you must know it, The Girl with the Turtle, and obviously the film itself, the research to the film was made in a classical way. So there was a storyboard drawn, there were a couple of versions, and there were boards that were used as inspiration, so different photos were collected. I guess it was a mood board, because Blue, who was the author of the material, also got inspiration in a group of performers, Polish performers, in his work. And well, obviously at the beginning it was the testing time, different effects were tested, but again the final effect depends on so many aspects. And when you have, well, this is a company that is specialized in opening sequences for computer games rather than films, so they were rather resistant at the beginning. Well, the whole thing was made with a computer. You don't have any elements added later on and made with a regular camera. These elements rather, they open certain trend, and they also make benchmark today, because at that time in pre-production faces of the main actors were scanned, but apart from that we had much more of the scans. So here we have Daniel Craig, Rooney Mara, face scan, and well, in general this technology today, you would say, enjoys rapid development. I remember the beginnings, the facial screening is based on a set of cameras arranged around the head of the actor, and they take photos of the actor or the whole body or the head only. And around the year 2000 I tried to start cooperation with the Glasgow University. They started the research, and at that time they were searching for a technology that they developed. And initially, like in the old photography, you had to stand still, and first a kind of light mesh was exposed, and then photos were taken, panoramic pictures were taken, and then the software translated the mesh into a solid block, and then the photo was translated into textures. And it was a very preliminary stage. They were very much interested to use this new project in a commercial way, and they were looking for applications, film applications, whereas now we can see, basically this year you can say that this technology has become so widely used. Here you can see an example of tests that can also be included in pre-visualization. When you have actors' face, you can do whatever you want with it. So you can have lots of programs for modeling that you can take a head and transform it in a very quick way. Here you have tests of decomposition, because the idea of the initial sequence in the film was that it was a gloomy dream, dark dream with some elements from the storyline. And it was obviously also at a later stage. So these are frames from the completed initial sequence. So generally, then transposing the scan onto any model is not a problem at all, and you can do it very quickly and easily. And here you can see an animatic. I will show it to you how such a head can be used for at least, well, it's definitely more advanced animatic than the one that you saw before. So an animatic, it's a form of pre-visualization. And here, because the whole thing is made in 3D, so it was really about analyzing the dynamics. You can see a lot of liquid simulation and some elements that, apart from being a special effect, they are also supposed to tell a story. And in fact, when you have actor's head, you can do anything that you want with it. And now I would like to show you the scan of the whole body. Well, obviously now the body was prepared for rendering. You can see the final product, because apart from the fact that you take the photo, that you make the solid form, you also have to prepare shaders or modules that are responsible for the solid body to properly reflect light, and you apply texture on it in the form of colors. Plus you have some additional elements like the hair that's added in post-production. So the figure here is hair-free. However, on the legs you can see some elements that contribute to realism, because you have hair in many places in your body, and when you have hair in the body, they simply make the body look more realistic. And here you have the scan of the head, and this is just a matter of how realistic it is. This is a problem of setting rendering itself and then post-production, because now always in film production, 3D production, you always have some processing in the form of components or layers that are responsible for different visual elements seen here. And now an interesting thing, because obviously this is ZBrush take, and a specific model costs £40, head scan £20, and text and scan without text £10. So basically this is a cost corresponding to pre-visualization, and these are ready-to-use models. Yes, in a moment I'll show it to you, because one of the models was tested by myself in ZBrush vis-a-vis application, and I just wanted to see whether it would work, and yes, it did. However, this is a cost that's nearly neglectable. You can invest and take a big step forward. And I guess as for the process itself, if you had a film with a normal budget, than to invite such a company to come on a stage. And now they also have, yes, something that corresponds to the bus that you discussed, but inside there's a system of cameras. And the actor enters, 2 photos are taken, and that's it. I don't think it would be a high cost. Here you have the same head in the model program, already rendered with surroundings so that you could see how realistic it is. And now you will see the model, how it looks like. So here you can have the so-called turntable. This is how you present models that are to be made for further acceptance. And this is very precise indeed. And obviously the texture of the face is exaggerated. And perhaps, definitely here, it results from the shader used by me. So it simulates the surface, silver surface, and it exposes certain nuances of the texture strongly. However, when you think about the mesh that you might apply, so in the nomenclature of modeling specialists, this is model alpha. So the topographics are not adjusted to animation, simply so that the animations could be made. You should have edge loops or polygon areas in specific points so that you could transpose the mimics. However, this model is satisfactory because in it we have several layers of density. It's satisfactory to do something like this. It took me a minute or 2 minutes, in fact, to increase the ears and to add the chin without losing other elements. We have different levels of mesh density, so without touching the main level, modeling on the lower level, you can basically do what you want with the head. I sort of made it longer, and I didn't want to exaggerate. I didn't want to turn it into a caricature. I increased the nose slightly. There's a hump on the nose added, a bit bigger ears, the chin. I didn't want to play too much, just to prove that in 30 seconds you can shape any head out of this model. And this is a valuable thing that you can use for different pre-visualizations. And what is more, you can use such a head for makeup, and you can check how the actress would look like with, say, future effects made by the makeupist. So this is a super opportunity, quite new, and it's the right direction because you can lower the cost of pre-visualization and the filmmaking itself. Here you have the head rendered, and here we have a film that shows how it was done. So you have an actor transposed into the mesh, and the photo. And now you will see, yes, and this is the system of cameras. There are quite many of them. However, they make the picture more precise. You could have 3 cameras. You take a single photo, so you don't have the effect that I discussed before when I tested the technology 10 years ago. You had to sit still for around 3 minutes without moving, and now it's 1 shot and that's it. And here, because textures, to be useful, they have to be free of the shade. They have to be absolutely flat. And now If it is not enough, we may also show you databases of various textures that could be used as components to be used in post-production. And the Surface Many company, and they give you a database. You must know it. There are different databases of textures, so these are a bit more precise, and again scanning, with which you can show the texture. In the past it was impossible. They have their own technology. It sort of differs from the previously shown one. Simply, the previous technology shows the whole model, whereas here these are graphic components. Rather, in 3D graphics, you use the bump map or normal map. These are color maps that are used to make light reflections as a trick. They are intensely used in games, and their benefit for 3D graphic is associated with the fact that they can be rendered without any loss on time and the power of the rendering device, and they are just ideal. The photographies of textures that have the layers of the normal map, it's a novelty today. It's very useful. Obviously, these components are flat. You can put it into your Photoshop and then do with the solid body what you want, apply the right texture. And here you can see a counterpart of the face, yes, in the left, done in this technology. And these are also patches, yes, used. So you have flat UV surface that corresponds to the solid. So these are just parts. You can't do it otherwise. To put the solid into a flat surface, you have to cut it. So it's really like skinning an animal, yes? You can't make it flat in a three-dimensional space. And here on the right, you have a part of the ground that was scanned in the technology. There's one more thing that seems quite important. Later on I will make a reference to it. It is the scanning of bodies in movement. This is a variation on what I showed before, but now you can scan solids that are in movement. And this can also be done in any place. This is fully mobile, as you can see. And the whole set consists of some background, some light, and a couple of cameras. So you don't really have to have any special technology, and a lot of work is done by the software associated with the system. Here you can see an example of how it works, and obviously, just like the mock-ups that I will refer to in a moment, or motion capture, such scans have to be cleaned afterwards, because never you receive a one-to-one product. So here, when you have the work of somebody who cleaned, well, especially like the interior of the mouth, you can see on the right it is not clean enough. And because these are rays that are perpendicular to the surface, they don't enter the mouth, they rather show the solid around. And the realism is really big. Well, surely these components cannot be used later on for any other job. This is a reflection of the movement of the figure itself. If it is not an actor, you can't do too much with it. It's not a component, it's not a universal component, but the realism is great. It's not an expensive technology. Because scanning seems to be a trend of this year, I wanted to show you two more examples. The first one It was scanning of solids in motion, and now we will have scanning of big objects. And it will be done with the equipment that's not terribly expensive. Artek it's called, and the Volkswagen that you see here will be scanned. The process of scanning itself is interesting because you use a portable scanner. The operator would fasten it. It's like a computer, and something like an iron is taken, and he will use the iron and go around the vehicle. And obviously you have to notice he's taking photos. They're flashes, yes? He's scanning surfaces and taking photos at the same time. For scanning you need different parameters, different than for photo taking. And slowly the car is being read in this way. So it is not a gigantic device. You can take it with you, put it into your pocket and scan whatever you want in a moment. Just like this. You can obviously build, well, such a model. You always have to clean it up a bit later on. However, the modeler is having an easier life. Good modeler costs a lot. And here these parts are put together because these were separate sessions of scanning, and then they are put together. They are fused, the whole solid is put together, so you have to clean it up, you have to smooth the windows, and you have to smooth the mesh because it was too dense. And simply with a proper algorithm you had to smooth it. And now you have texturing, so this is the stage when textures are applied easily, and this is the final effect. And again, this technology will not give you the inside, the interior, and perhaps, or maybe perhaps they put it up and scan it from the bottom. Sometimes it's impossible, and certain things had to be additionally modeled. So again, this is not a finished product right away. It's a component that requires some further work, but it accelerates our work, especially in more complicated stuff. And now to prove that it's not it yet, here I will show you a scan of a house. This is quite an expensive thing now, but also it's also quite intensively used in films, and in a moment you will see practical application. And this is a scanner with which we can scan a street, and right away you can test certain effects. So this is pre-visualization as well, but for bigger productions. And obviously you can also limit the cost, because modeling this house will take, I think, 2 months of the work of one person. Maybe less, maybe 1 month. However, if you have somebody who will do it in a month, then you will have to pay them much more than those that are able to do it within 2 months. Now, these are scanners. I'll show you. I have more photos. These scanners are called LIDAR. And you can use them to scan the area, the ground. This is a river, and LIDAR today is quite intensely used in films that require special effects. So it's also a kind of standard now. So these are the grounds covered by greenery, and this is a street with illumination. Well, obviously the illumination, you may say, it's backup. So it comes together with the textures. You can't take a lamp and reposition it. You will have to. So this is something that you are given, something that is embedded in the solid. If you add light in a different location, it will not result in a different view. You will just add one more light. And here you can see the device in a smaller version. On the left you have the panoramic view, shot taken from a helicopter. And now I would like to pass over to another trend that has emerged. Well, you can already see the first symptoms. The costs make a very important element in the film production, even in high budget productions. So in the past we used to say that you will do everything in post-production anyway. It is not true, because it's always bad when the crew is thinking while filming that everything can be everything can be done in a computer. Surely you can't do everything in a computer, but sometimes it takes so much time and effort. And here you have an example of big budget project, Oblivion, Joseph Kosinski's film. And a novelty here was the setting. So in general, this is Sky Tower. This is how they called it. What you do in post was here put on set. I mean, we wanted to add the so-called secondary lighting to the scene. And around the thing, a screen was built. In theory, most such things were done in green screen, and here just vice versa, to cut down the post-production work because of the reflections of surfaces like here. To do it in post-production is quite a nightmare, and it was easier to control it on the set. So all the clouds, they went to the mountains and filmed clouds, and they were imposed on the screen, and they were used as an additional light. So it was post-production on the set, and it's a trend today. People do think already about certain post-production limitations. Not everything can be processed later on. Certain things have to be planned before, and as you can see, the effect doesn't differ too much from actual editing in a computer and overlapping. I mean, you could also do it in a computer, however, then it would require much more work. And here you have all the models and the whole stage designed together with illumination done on set. Another thing that is perhaps not such a great novelty, however, it is being intensely used in films, deep compositing. The point is, in composing photos with actors, photos from the set, and joining them with computer graphics, you have to use the so-called depth maps. This is really black and white bitmap that shows you the distance from things. And the problem of depth maps is that such maps work like three-dimensional mold geology map that lacks depth, and all the volumetric effects cannot be easily composed because there's no depth to them. Because it's a three-dimensional mold, something can be just before or after it. Deep compositing is really like cloud of points that tell you that the effect can be easily moved into any of the places. Well, here you have a shot from the new Iron Man. The holograms were made here with the deep compositing method. It's a new technology. It is being launched now. However, there's a trend now that big studios like Industrial Light and Magic launch open source stuff that's intensely used later on in post-production. One of open source solutions is XR, so the format of file recording, and the deep compositing thing is strongly associated with XR and the recording format, because the information has to be somehow transferred to new cloud programs. I think in 6.3 version the deep compositing components can be read in, and I think that today perhaps 4 renderers are able to generate it for you. I don't know whether here we do have some people advanced in 3D. Do we have anybody advanced in 3D? So perhaps I should not go any deeper, because I might be deeper about it, but I think these elements might be nice for you. You can plan things, and surely all these things, it is not something that you have to do personally, because every film is made by a crew, but it's good to know that something exists and that you can use it. And here you have an example of a depth map. And in fact, no, it's not an example of a depth map. However, I shall use it to explain how depth maps operate. So the elements that are farther away are lighter in color, darker ones are closer to you. I mean, it's a matter of agreement. With a single click you can change it. And now, specifically, this is an effect of fog, volumetric, and the point is that with this generated picture you can set the fog the way you want. It can be denser in front or denser at the back. You can easily move it in the space, which was not possible in the past. And here you have different examples. And here, well, back to our scanner play. So here you have one more application of the LiDAR scanner, the big format one that I mentioned before. So in Iron Man it was used, and again right away you may here next trend that I wanted to highlight. It is the expansion of motion design. Motion design, in other words, is really about making movable graphics. In futuristic films in the past, or more technical films, these elements were in such films really mistreated. Here, it's all topographics illuminated as holograms around the main actor. And here we'll have motion design example. It was nicely composed into a film that I referred to before. Oblique. And here it's an art to make graphics that are movable, and it's really about having the right typographics and elements that appear in theory in the background, but the viewer will see them anyway. And when you watch such a film, you won't pay attention to to the fact that it's such an important element, but it sort of adds to the atmosphere, and it's also an element of the stage design, which is quite often added in post-production, because in this case you will never have the picture made on screen. You wouldn't, on set, pardon, you wouldn't show it in screens on set. And this is just another futuristic. If you can remember The Last Alien, also there, the motion design was done very well, and it also influences your impressions of the film. Some shots, and obviously deep compositing also had a role to play in compositing the picture. But not to suggest that it's only about science fiction films. Here we have an example of a serious film. I'll show it in a moment. We also have motion design in it, but of an absolutely different rank. However, it is used to show. It's about Mind Palace, or a serious film that's quite popular now, Sherlock, made by BBC. And here again you have just fragments of it. And when Sherlock is thinking about how to solve the puzzle, various elements, typographic elements are added, and it is also a symptom of the change. In the past, the typographics was only used at the opening sequence of the film, and now it extends the picture. It's joined with the pictures from the set. There's a lot of it, and the typographics here, well, it differs from the previous one, also because it's a TV film, so it is shown in a different medium, and that is why you need to adjust the size to have the right impression, to make them readable. And this is a typical television focused motion design. And again, you have an open field for experimenting. And also, as you can see, it's associated with different things, with editing and also with the speed control. Slow motion is used here appropriately, and slow motion became popular with Guy Ritchie, who treated it as an element of addition. Certain scenes have to be frozen for a moment to make them even more impressive. And the following thing that I wanted to cover, as for the trends, again, we'll have to come back to pre-production, and I would like to talk about motion capture. Well, the technology, Xbox has changed, kinetic, and Microsoft treated it as marketing. They could sell the panels with a different navigation, whereas now, well, it is not a new phenomena, and it is quite deeply rooted. I wanted to mention it because now more and more production and post-production use motion capturing in this form, because it's a very cheap solution. And look, computer plus the kinetic device that you can buy separately, and it is not expensive really, plus the software that can process it for you. So you receive, as a result, you receive the motion that can be used differently, at least for such visualization as you could see before. Well, this is an animation which is not super perfect. It does have its limitations, and they result from the way it was filmed by the kinetic So this is just the picture of the right width, and you can't do the mimics. Their attempts to add finger movement, to be able to catch finger movement as well. Most often these are hands without other details. So this is one company. There are many companies that propose such solutions, and this is a company that has been around for a bit longer. And in here you will be able to see, yes, this is an application in 3D graphics. So smooth and polished, because motion capture, even if it is done with professional equipment, does require some polishing, and usually you use motion builder software or directly in Maya, which I will show you tomorrow. Perhaps I will not talk about motion capturing, polishing or smoothing. We will talk about Maya. So simply you can polish your picture. These are like cubes and components that you can put together, and these are, unlike the motion scans that I showed you before, that were used only the way they were. These are the components that can be used differently. As you can see, the quality is bearable, and definitely they are good for pre-visualization. And here to compare, you had examples before on inexpensive motion capturing. Here I just wanted to show you the principle of how it is done. So really you don't need special illumination, you don't need special interior. Well, obviously we are, in a way, I think it also depends on the quantity. If I'm not wrong, if you have got a single kinetic, you can have 6 meter space with 2 or 3, because you can put together a couple of them. So then you can go up to 14 square meters of the area. And here you can see on the one side how it is seen by the kinetic, and on the left you can see how it is afterwards translated. Perhaps we will not go through the whole process because it's late. I wouldn't like us to stay here till the morning. Well, here you can see an example, the mock-up. Well, this is an intro to a game, and it has very good motion capture. I would like you to be able to compare the previous one in the simple form and the limitations behind it. I would like to see it, to show it, because it's done quite ideally, motion capture. You will see how nicely Actor's Game was translated. You can see a lot happens in the mimics, and surely motion capture will not make the film. What matters is the light, the texture, the music, which you don't have now because it would interfere with my presentation. However, please notice it. This has been intensely polished. However, definitely it was not done with the previous device. It has quite significant limitations, and you can't do anything about it, because when you try to smooth your motion capturing from kinetics, it will take so much time that it really makes more sense to do it manually. So right, this is what you receive, and then this is quite perfectly made. And it's not only the matter of motion capturing itself, as I've said, but also certain effects that are added here, like the use of certain elements of a slow motion, of an explosion, very picturesque, and you could not really do it in any other technology. Together with, I don't know whether you could say it, excessive contrast, but there was this explosion wave shown very nicely. And here you cannot say that it was made artificially. And as for animation of figures, I'll come back to it in a moment, because we'll talk about certain trends and technologies. Alright, to sort of accelerate, now I would like to tell you about a trend which perhaps is not well set yet, but it's emerging in filmmaking, so extended reality. So it was partially used in Avatar because this figures was shown on screen in an environment. Now to do something like this is a module for making extended reality. It is a part of Autodesk program, and this, Autodesk Showcase is the name. So it really consists in, you can see it here in the card, you have a pattern printed, and then it's followed by the camera, and you can have pre-visualizations, namely to have a pre-visualization that's based on extended reality that consists in the scenery being placed around, and with your camera you may make tests, what the camera would see. It's quite useful in pre-visualization. And another trend emerging, this is multi-platform approach. In the past there was quite a fight between the supporters, verbal fight, not physical fight, but I suspect that sometimes the verbal exchange was so intensive that could easily translate into physical acts. The fight on which program is better, soft image or others. There are lots of programs that were sort of competing against each other. Then they became more popular because Autodesk bought 3 of the most important programs, and in a way they calmed down. However, I wanted to say that yet another trend in post-production is multi-platform approach. It doesn't matter most often studios, if they have the right budget, they just use everything. If they employ people, what really matters is a person's knowledge and ability to make an effect rather than the software applied, because it's really a matter of, in every software today you can achieve certain effects if you are skilled enough. And there are also certain programs that are sort of more open. That we will talk about during our workshop. Maya is one of them, because the architecture of Maya allows you to join the efforts of the whole team. Everybody can adjust it to any pipeline. However, Olympic, this is the elite format for data transfer between different programs, 3D programs, and it's also open source, so it's quite a well set trend. And the fact that you can have simulations of, say, for example, liquid in the real flow, and then you transfer it to Maya, put it to Motion Builder, and then to Houdini to have rendering. So this is just another trend emerging in the market. Here, another important thing, a thing that also to some extent you can say it's a holy grail of computer designers. This is the ability to see live product in real time, and there are lots of renderers that use the graphic card. So in fact, I perhaps should show a different example. This is rendering made in 10 seconds, I think. Usually you would need 5 minutes for calculations, and it has real impact on the production, and it sort of makes the budget better. So we don't need to rent a farm. You have a single computer, you add this supportive graphic card, and it renders nearly in real time, and what is more, in the screen you can see the light. Normal production process of a 3D film consists in making the test rendering first, and then you have render in form of belts or passes from specific components, and only in the Nuke or After Effects program you put these things together, and only then you can see how it looks like in real time. Here you have a different opportunity, and it really has an impact on the budget itself. As you can see, rendering, yes, you can see it's artificial. It's not ideal. However, at the same time, most viewers would not, apart from professionals, from professional designers, for an average viewer, it's really irrelevant whether you did it with a classical method or with a graphic card support. Variable is one of the renderers that have this feature, and here you have an example that you would remember from the previous test. So the render of the face, and also here 13 frames per second, variable effect with a graphic card. Here you have different renderer, Octane renderer it's called, and examples of its operation, and you also have very realistic effects, and they are good indeed. They can be used in such post-production, and the quality is really okay. A well-known person to you, I guess. Well, also an example of rendering. And another thing, well, to confirm that it's a kind of trend, we may say that After Effects also has the support of a C6 card. As for Adobe, well, another trend on the market is getting into the cloud, and the cloud has existed for some time. However, Adobe, they decided, because of financial reasons, perhaps the model of sales, of launching novelties, everybody buys the novelty and it's like an explosion of profits, and then for a long time you have nothing because the programs are selling less and less intensive. They decided that it was not a good marketing model, not a good business model. So they transferred the whole Adobe packet into the cloud, and if it works for Adobe, then other companies would follow them. And in general, you download a program, you buy a license, and for a month time the program has to check online whether you have the license active. You buy your subscription, so when it ceases, the program will no longer work, and it's the only opportunity now, and it's also, I would say, a symptom of the future. The fee is not high for the whole packet of Adobe, all the potential programs. This is €60 a month for a single program, €24 monthly, and you have to, just like with mobile phones, you have to sign a year-long agreement to use it. However, the costs are sort of spread over time. I think this model is really prepared for companies rather than fanciers. So this is a form of leasing, I guess. But Adobe decided that for them it is the only possible way to buy the programs now. And for the people that have got the software from Adobe, they have some special discounts to encourage them to use this. And with it in the cloud, you would also have some disk space, 20 gigabytes, and perhaps some programs, because now Adobe is quite strong in pre-production program development. So they have the program for material reading in, so the transfer from camera to your computer, or another program for script writing. And these programs they function only on the internet platform. This is an example of an application with the graphic card support. In post-production, you can warp the space. If you use After Effects, you can know that all three-dimensional elements were flat pieces of paper and you couldn't do anything more with them. I don't know about the time. When you are extremely tired, then you have to inform me, because I could take the whole night talking about it. It's 8, so I think I should accelerate, and I still wanted to briefly talk about such things as trends based on technical Oscars allotted this year. So I will try. Well, as always, this is a broad subject and you never have enough time to discuss everything. It is an example of a program that is, it's a great concept. And again, it's a reference to what I said before. Right, you see the effect in the screen. You didn't have this opportunity before. The program is called Claris IFX, and it merges a compositing program like Nuke with a 3D program. And it is quite good because, especially for the people that are starting, they play by changing the light to get the effect instantly. You don't have to go through any complicated production stages. However, I will not show it all to you. And now today's Oscars. Academy Awards. They handle out technical achievement awards for the projects that were not necessarily developed in 2012. What is being acknowledged is the fact that this year there was a significant advancement in that field, so it just proves certain trends as well, mostly in post-production. One of the winners was Katana program, produced by the same producer than Nuke. So it's very similar to Clarice. So in real time you can arrange your lighting. It's mostly used for big scenes and the light. You had screenshots here. It's for Linux. So for the professional production process. The following award was given to Pulse Space Deformation, and it was used, among others, to make animations and animatics, and it has existed for some time. It's quite important because the second product, very similar one, was also awarded, so I'll get to it in a moment. But generally it consists in, yes, you can see the application. If you have a 3D rendered figure and you move the elbow, usually you lose the volume associated with the fact that the mesh is distorted by the skeleton inside, and this is jaw outer lip surface. With it you can have the layer that's applied depending on the position of the main figure, and then the solid is made protrude and an appropriate areas to make a more realistic effect. Here we have another award, Velvet Turbulence, used for film effects filter. Once again, on the right you have the version with the velvet turbulence, so you get an additional, in simulation of particles you have an additional effect. And now another award similar to the previous one, but now this is a module that simulates human body, so it simulates what happens under your skin. It was used in Avatar. Once again, perhaps I should explain what it's about. Once again, the points on the left that you see here, their role is to do motion capturing of the body, and they are transferred to the skeleton inside, not necessarily the muscles. Muscles are simulated, and it's a system that generates different dynamics associated with gravity and muscles coming into contact with each other. Here you can see the examples, and it was also awarded with an Oscar. And another thing, the Oscars are not only given for software. Here you have an element on the set for lighting arrangement and maintenance, and the batteries were also awarded, so the power system for cameras. And I'm sorry, I think we shall be finishing. Cook Optics, so a set of lenses, they got an award for all their work, because there is even this Cook-Look term that determines the work of the lenses. But by the by, and a program was also awarded, the program that we'll talk about in today's time. Well, the 3D graphics, tomorrow I will try to give you some introduction into it. However, the Mocha software is used. What is cracking and what is important, it follows planes rather than sections of it. It was also awarded. I'll talk about it in today's time. And the final thing, in 3 days' time, CGI lighting system based on HDI. So we take a panoramic picture on set, you record the lightning, and you use it for secondary lighting later on. The system, it's not used for special effects, but for three-dimensional animation. So here you have different examples, and it's a really calculation spreadsheet associated with the light and recording of certain natural phenomena and then transferring them into the virtual zone. All right, because the time is finished. That's it for today. Do you have any questions? Because the 3D dream to have online monitoring, do you think it will kill compositing? No. Compositing is a term that is very broad indeed. So it is just full material processing in general. You can put many things into it. Most often you will have 3D material processing, but compositing also allows you to delete certain elements that you have in this screen, if you have wires, for example, power wires, you can cut them out. In post-production, you can just eliminate redundant elements. And I think the extended reality is really the song of the future.
Finished?
They are just answering questions now.
You want a coffee?
Me?
Yeah. You must be very
I'm
tired.
afraid.
Will I bring it to you?
No, thank you. No, it's okay.
You want me to bring you something?
No, thank you.
Are you sure?
Thank you,
Okay.
yes indeed. So the extended reality is not an abstract either. Really, I would be more focused on commercial applications and not necessarily showing to your colleague how great your smartphone is. Well, I think it will not replace compositing, because compositing is just footage processing. It's really a different type of work, but perhaps it will change the post-production itself. I would have a question that refers to the LIDAR system. It's widely used in land survey. However, have you made any films in Poland? Do you know about any Polish films that use this solution? I think it's quite costly. It's a quite costly technology, and in Poland, not too many films with advanced special effects are made, or to say nothing in this area is made really. If you have any plans, I know that VIIIth would really support things that use advanced post-production. Polish cinema, well, apart from projects based on 3D, apart from advertisements, they don't really use special effects. If you want them, you would hire external companies. LIDAR, if it is used, then it's true, it's mostly used for architecture or these places where you have the money. I don't really remember now any Polish film in which it was used, but for example, scanners. They are available in the photogeometry department. And the question is, will any of you use it, or is it too complicated? Well, I think it is quite a good moment now, because this technology, well, they want to popularize it. And I talked to Glasgow University, and at that time they were searching. Then in the school there were no students that could go for a study visit. Well, I wouldn't like to talk about details. However, they were looking for people for whom they could use this technology, give this technology for free, so that these people could make it more popular. And I think also the perspective of using it in a film, for you it could be a kind of gate to get it without having any budget at all, because this is just a way to use this product commercially. And for such companies, for a university, it's a great promotion of a solution, and it's also an opportunity to test it. So I think you have to try. It is not so that these technologies are beyond your reach. Obviously, they are achievable and they are used in big productions, surely. However, this is not an abstract, and you can use something like this. Recently, LIDAR was used in a smaller production in the Radiohead clip, I guess. Well, the whole clip was about having a cloud of points, and a band and some landscapes were put together, and the whole clip was about it. So the picture was generated by LIDAR and edited in a classical way. However, you didn't have real photos, all of them were processed. And could I ask you about the most interesting augmented reality? Well, do we really have the most interesting solution? I would say no. It's all manufacture. It's all now been used intensely in visualizations of machines, interior. I think for a film it's quite a perspective and a potential. A simpler ability to manipulate with the picture. So it's at least easier, well, you talked about it before, that the set designer is never too much engaged in the film itself, and if you have the augmented reality technology, then you can design your set in reality, and the set designer doesn't have to be there in person. He can send a 3D file to show which parts of the camera can be seen. Again, it has an impact on cost. It doesn't make sense to build the decorations that will not be seen by the camera. So now, this technique, apart from all others that I've covered, this is a very new thing. And I guess this is a direction that shall be remembered because it will be talked about more.